This is not a random moment. This is not background noise in your day. This is not another message competing for your attention. This is the hour heaven chose to speak, and you were meant to hear it now. Somewhere between what you planned to do next and what you almost ignored, God interrupted time itself. When heaven speaks right now, it is because delay would cost too much. There are moments when God whispers, moments when He teaches, and moments when He waits. But then there are rare moments like this, when heaven sends a warning wrapped in mercy, urgency wrapped in love, and clarity that does not return twice in the same form. Archangel Michael does not speak without reason. His presence is never casual. In scripture and spiritual history, His warnings arrive at turning points, when destinies are being decided, when battles are already forming, when silence would be more dangerous than fear. This is one of those moments. You are not hearing this because you are curious. You are hearing this because something is at stake, and heaven is refusing to stay quiet any longer. There is a reason the message feels heavy. There is a reason it feels clear. And there is a reason it feels like time is pressing inward instead of stretching out. God is speaking right now because later is not promised in the same way. Heaven does not beg for attention, but it does warn before consequences unfold. There are doors that only open once. There are calls that do not echo endlessly. There are seasons where God speaks with precision because confusion would destroy what He is trying to protect. This is not about fear. This is about alignment. This is not about pressure. This is about timing. And timing, when ignored, quietly becomes regret. You may not fully understand why this message feels different, but your spirit does. Your mind may still be catching up, but your inner being already knows this is not ordinary. Heaven has been patient. Signs have been subtle. Nudges have been gentle. But now the tone has shifted, because what comes next cannot wait for hesitation. When Archangel Michael warns, it is not to threaten, it is to shield. It is not to overwhelm, it is to awaken. And it is never without purpose. There are people who hear God often and people who hear Him rarely. Then there are moments when God speaks clearly. These moments are sacred. They do not repeat easily. If ignored, heaven does not argue. It withdraws, not out of anger, but out of order. God will not force clarity on a heart that keeps postponing obedience. And this is why the warning matters, not because God wants to be heard, but because He wants you protected, positioned, and prepared. Right now, heaven is closer than it feels. The spiritual realm is active, not distant. Decisions are being weighed. Paths are diverging. And silence would be costly. That is why this message is urgent. That is why delay is dangerous. That is why the clarity you are sensing may never sound the same again if you choose to dismiss it. God is not saying this to frighten you. He is saying it because He sees what you cannot yet see, and He loves you too much to stay silent. There are moments when people later say, I knew. I felt it. I heard it, but I waited. This message exists to prevent that sentence from becoming yours. Heaven is offering instruction before impact, direction before confusion, warning before loss. And Archangel Michael stands as a sign that this is not about comfort. It is about readiness. Comfort Him wait. Readiness cannot. Do not underestimate the seriousness of a message that finds you in this exact moment. Do not assume you can return to it later with the same clarity. Spiritual clarity is a gift, not a guarantee. When God speaks clearly, it is because obedience needs clarity. When heaven warns urgently, it is because the margin for delay is thin. And when you are told that ignoring this may mean never hearing from heaven this clearly again, it is not a threat. It is truth. You were not meant to stumble into this message. You were drawn here because your life intersects with what heaven is about to do next. This is the context. This is the weight. This is the reason urgency fills the air. God is speaking right now. Archangel Michael is warning right now. And what you do with this moment will echo further than you realize. There is a silent crisis unfolding right now, and most believers do not see it, not because they are unwilling, but because it is subtle. It does not announce itself with chaos. It does not arrive with loud rebellion. It comes quietly, disguised as busyness, fatigue, and I'll get to it later. This crisis is not about rejecting God outright. It is about slowly losing sensitivity to His voice while still believing we are close to Him. And that is what makes it so dangerous. Many people still pray, still believe, still call on God, but fewer are truly listening. Distraction has become the new language of delay. Noise has replaced discernment, and constant stimulation has dulled spiritual awareness. Heaven has not stopped speaking. The problem is that hearts have grown accustomed to filtering God's voice through convenience instead of obedience. This is why warnings like this are necessary. Not because faith is gone, but because attentiveness is fading. The generation before us feared missing God. This generation fears missing comfort. And in that subtle shift, spiritual urgency have been replaced with spiritual negotiation. Later has become the most common response to divine nudges. But heaven does not operate on human delay. When God speaks, it is because the moment requires action, not consideration, not postponement, not endless confirmation. Obedience delayed is often obedience denied, even if intentions are sincere. This is the silent crisis. People assume that because God is patient, timing does not matter. But patience does not cancel precision. Mercy does not remove order. God may wait, but opportunities do not. Windows of clarity open for a reason, and they close without announcement. That is why so many people look back and say, I don't know when it changed. I just stopped hearing Him the same way. It did not change suddenly. It faded gradually, through small delays that felt harmless at the time. Archangel Michael's warning confronts this exact issue. It is not aimed at the rebellious. It is aimed at the distracted. It is not for those who deny God. It is for those who assume they have time. This message is not accusing you. It is awakening you. Heaven is saying, do not miss this moment by assuming another will come just like it. Because it will not. Spiritual dullness rarely feels like danger. It feels like routine. It feels like familiarity. It feels like knowing God well enough to predict Him, and that is where clarity begins to fade. God refuses to be reduced to habit. When His voice becomes background noise, He shifts the volume, not to punish, but to protect what still remains sacred. This is why you may sense restlessness even when nothing seems wrong. Why prayers feel quieter. Why conviction feels softer. Why urgency feels rare. It is not because God left. It is because hearts have learned to delay instead of respond. And heaven is intervening before silence becomes permanent. This is also why messages like this must be shared. Not for popularity, not for algorithms, but because awakening spreads through agreement. When you like this message, when you share it, when you comment, you are not just engaging, you are aligning. You are telling heaven, I am paying attention. You are telling others, this matters. And you are telling your own spirit, I choose awareness over distraction. If this message is stirring something in you, do not keep it private. Share it. Let it reach those who are drifting without realizing it. And if this channel continues to echo what your spirit has been sensing, Subscribe, not out of habit, but out of hunger for clarity. The cost of postponing obedience is rarely immediate, but it is always cumulative. Every delayed response adds weight to confusion. Every ignored nudge dims sensitivity. And eventually, people mistake silence for peace. But silence is not peace when heaven is waiting for response. Peace follows alignment, not avoidance. Right now, heaven is drawing a line, not between believers and unbelievers, but between the attentive and the distracted, between those who respond and those who rationalize delay, between those who recognize urgency and those who assume comfort equals safety. This is not condemnation. This is invitation. But invitations expire. If you feel a quiet urgency while hearing this, do not dismiss it. That is awareness returning. That is discernment reawakening. That is heaven saying, "You still hear me." And that is why this moment matters more than you realize. There is a reason this message keeps finding you. It is not coincidence, and it is not chance. Heaven has a pattern when it interrupts a life, and that pattern is repetition. When God wants attention, He does not shout once and disappear. He allows the message to surface again and again, through different moments, different voices, different timings, until the heart either responds or resists. What you are experiencing right now is not pressure. It is mercy. Throughout Scripture, divine interruptions always followed the same rhythm. Moses encountered the burning bush more than once before he turned aside. Samuel heard his name repeatedly before he recognized the voice. Jonah was given more than one opportunity to respond before the consequences unfolded. Repetition was not God's impatience, it was His compassion. God repeats what matters because He understands human hesitation. But repetition is also a warning. The window is still open, but it will not remain open forever. If this message feels like it found you, that is because heaven is tracking your attention. God does not waste clarity. He directs it. When a message returns to you, it means the first nudge was not ignored, but it was not acted upon either. And now heaven is leaning closer, not angrily, not forcefully, but deliberately. Archangel Michael's warning is connected to this repetition. His presence signals that the stakes have increased, not because you failed, but because time has advanced. There are people who mistake repeated messages for coincidence. Others call it algorithm. But the spiritually aware recognize a different pattern. Heaven speaks in layers. When you are ready to hear more, the message deepens. When urgency increases, clarity sharpens. That is why this message feels clearer than others. It is not louder, it is more focused. And clarity like this is never casual. You may have felt this before, a sense that something is approaching, a feeling that decisions matter more now, an awareness that delay carries weight. That is not anxiety. That is discernment waking up. The sign is not the message itself. The sign is your response to it. Your spirit recognized this before your mind did. That recognition is proof that heaven is still communicating with you clearly. Archangel Michael's role in moments like this is not symbolic. He is associated with warning before transition, with protection before battle, with clarity before chaos. His presence signals that something is forming beneath the surface. You may not see it yet, but heaven does. And that is why the message repeats. God does not repeat Himself without purpose. He repeats Himself to position you. There is also a sobering truth here. Repeated clarity does not mean unlimited opportunity. In fact, repetition is often the final grace before movement. When God repeats a message, it is because action is required. Silence follows response, your resistance. This is why ignoring this moment carries risk. Not because God withdraws love, but because He respects choice. Heaven will not compete with distraction forever. If you are hearing this again, it means you are still within the window. It means mercy is active. It means clarity is available. But it also means the time to respond is now, not later. Later is the language of mistiming. Now is the language of alignment. This is the moment where many people later say, "I wish I had listened." This message exists so that sentence never becomes yours. Heaven is giving you awareness before impact, the erection before confusion, warning before loss, and repetition is your confirmation that this is real. Let this settle deeply. You are not here by accident. This message is not passing through your life randomly. It returned because heaven is asking for response, not acknowledgement. And what comes next depends on what you do with what you have heard. Before moving forward, receive this blessing. Type "I receive heaven's clarity" in the comments if this resonates with you. Blessing code 317 is now activated. And hold this close. What is about to be revealed next brings everything you have sensed into focus. You will be glad you stayed. As this message settles in your spirit, hear this invitation clearly. When God releases clarity, He also releases responsibility. Every seed sown into this mission becomes like reaching someone who is still in the dark, oil poured into a lamp that was almost out. I feel led to tell you, this is your moment to act, not later. Scripture says God gives seed to the sower, and He is speaking that promise over you right now. Your support through Super Thanks, membership, or PayPal is not a donation. It is obedience responding to revelation. Open the door heaven is placing before you. So now, and let God multiply it into lives change. The PayPal link is in the description, and the QR code is appearing now. Move as the Spirit leads. Archangel Michael's warning is not directed at everyone. This is important to understand. Heaven does not issue the same message to all ears in the same way. Some are comforted, some are corrected, and some are commanded. This warning belongs to the watchful, the ones who sense when something is shifting before it becomes visible. It is not for those who mock spiritual urgency, and it is not for those who refuse accountability. It is for those who still care enough to listen, even when the message is uncomfortable. Throughout spiritual history, Archangel Michael appears at moments when spiritual lines are being drawn. His warnings do not arrive during calm seasons. They come when decisions create irreversible momentum. This is why His presence feels weighty. He does not announce gentle reminders. He delivers alerts. Not because God is harsh, but because the situation is serious. There is a difference between a comforting message and a command message. Comfort restores. Commands reposition. And right now, heaven is repositioning those who are willing to respond. The watchful are those who notice subtle shifts before others do. They feel unease before disruption. They sense urgency before consequence. They recognize when prayer changes tone and when silence begins to carry meaning. This message is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to confirm what you have already been sensing. Something is forming. Something is approaching. And neutrality is not protection. One of the most dangerous assumptions believers make is that delay is harmless. But delay is not neutral in spiritual matters. Delay slowly transforms clarity into confusion. What was once obvious becomes debatable. What once stirred conviction becomes negotiable. Archangel Michael's warning confronts this exact drift. He is not warning against sin alone. He is warning against postponement. Because postponed obedience quietly becomes disobedience, even when intentions remain sincere. There is a thin line between waiting on God and resisting God. Waiting involves attentiveness, readiness, and surrender. Resistance hides behind logic, comfort, and fear of disruption. The watchful know the difference. They recognize when God is asking for movement, not meditation. This is one of those moments. Heaven is not asking you to analyze endlessly. Heaven is asking you to align decisively. This warning also exposes a deeper truth. Spiritual warfare intensifies before revelation takes root. Confusion, fatigue, distraction, and doubt often rise when a message carries consequence. This is not coincidence. It is resistance. Darkness does not fear noise. It fears clarity. And this message carries clarity. That is why ignoring it feels easier than responding. Resistance always offers comfort. Obedience demands courage. Archangel Michael stands as a guardian not just against external threats, but against internal compromise. He warns because he protects. He alerts because he shields. This message is not announcing danger to overwhelm you. It is revealing danger so you are not caught unprepared. Heaven never warns with providing a path forward, but that path requires response. There is also a sobering reality here. Not everyone who hears a warning is meant to act on it. Some will hear and dismiss. Some will hear and delay. Some will hear and forget. But the watchful will hear and respond. This is not about superiority, it is about responsibility. Greater awareness carries greater accountability. And if this message resonates with you, it is because heaven trusts you with responsibility. Do not confuse peace with permission to ignore urgency. True peace follows obedience, not avoidance. False peace comforts delay. This warning disrupts false peace so that real peace can follow. That disruption is mercy. God disturbs what is comfortable to protect what is valuable. And right now, what is valuable is your alignment with His timing. The line between delay and disobedience is crossed quietly. No alarm sound. No dramatic moment announces it. It happens when clarity is postponed long enough that conviction fades. Archangel Michael's warning exists to stop that process before it completes. You are being given the chance to respond while clarity is still sharp. This is not about fear of missing out. It is about awareness of what matters. Heaven is not rushing you. It is guiding you. But guidance requires movement. And movement requires trust. The watchful understand this. They move even when the full picture is not visible, because they recognize the voice behind the warning. If you feel the weight of this message, it is because you are among those being warned, not condemned, not threatened, but entrusted. Heaven is speaking because silence would cost too much. And Archangel Michael's warning is not the end of the message, it is the doorway into what comes next. There are moments when heaven opens a window that does not stay open. This is one of the hardest truths to accept, because it confronts the comforting idea that there will always be another chance that looks the same. Scripture and spiritual history quietly testify to this pattern again and again. God is endlessly merciful, but moments of divine clarity are not endlessly repeated. When heaven speaks with precision, it is because that precision is needed for a specific season, and seasons change. Throughout the Bible, there are moments when God spoke once, clearly, and then moved on. Noah warned for years, but the rain came only once. The door of the ark did not remain open indefinitely. When it closed not because God lacked compassion, but because timing had reached its conclusion. The Israelites stood at the edge of promise, yet fear delayed them until opportunity expired. What should have taken days became decades. Not because God changed His mind, but because the moment passed. This is why the warning you are hearing now carries such weight. Heaven's windows are not emotional. They are orderly. They open when alignment is possible and close when delay would do more harm than good. When God says, "Now," He's not rushing you. He is revealing that the conditions are right. And when those conditions shift, the same clarity does not always return. Many people assume that if God truly wants something, He will keep repeating it forever. But repetition has a purpose, and that purpose is response. When response does not come, repetition ends. Not out of rejection, but out of respect for human choice. God will not force alignment. He invites it, warns toward it, and then honors the decision that follows. This is why spiritual opportunities often expire silently. There is rarely a dramatic announcement that says, "This was your moment." Instead, people look back later and realize something changed. Prayer feels different. Direction feels quieter. The sense of nearness fades, and they wonder when it happened. It happened when the window closed. Heaven's windows are not punishments. They are privileges. They exist to move you forward, to protect you from unseen consequences, to position you where grace can flow freely. When those windows close, it does not mean God leaves. It means the season has shifted. And navigating a new season without the clarity of the previous one is far more difficult. This is why assuming later is dangerous. Later is not a guarantee. It is a hope. And hope without action becomes regret. The message you are hearing now is not heavy because it threatens loss. It is heavy because it reveals value. God does not warn about trivial things. He warns about what matters deeply. And what matters now is your timing. There are decisions that shape direction quietly. Low thunder. No collapse. Just a subtle turn that leads away from what could have been. Heaven warns before those turns become fixed. This message is not about fear, it is about foresight. God sees further than you do. He knows what delay will cost, even if you do not feel that cost yet. Many people miss heaven's windows because they mistake familiarity for safety. They assume that because life looks stable, nothing urgent is required. But stability can hide stagnation. Comfort can mask drift. And drift, left uncorrected, leads far from original direction. This is why warnings arrive before consequences, not after. The emotional weight you feel is not meant to crush you. It is meant to awaken discernment. When heaven opens a window, it invites courage. Courage to act without full certainty. Courage to respond without perfect conditions. Courage to trust that obedience now is better than clarity later. Ignoring a window does not always bring immediate trouble. Sometimes it brings quiet loss. Loss of momentum. Loss of sensitivity. Loss of peace that once came easily. People often say, "I don't know why things feel harder now." Often, it is because they are navigating a season without responding to the grace of the previous one. This is why Archangel Michael's warning matters so deeply here. His presence signals that the window is real, and the timing is precise. Heaven is not speaking casually. It is speaking carefully. This moment has been measured, not improvised. And that means your response matters more than you realize. You are being invited to recognize the value of this clarity while it is still available. To honor the window instead of assuming it will wait. To understand that heaven's patience does not cancel heaven's or. This is not pressure. It is protection. The window is open now. Not to frighten you, but to guide you. What you do with this moment will shape how the next season sounds, feels, and unfolds. Heaven has spoken. The question is not whether God is willing to guide you. It is whether you are willing to move while the light is still on. There is a reason this message feels heavy, yet unmistakably clear. It is not confusion. It is not fear. And it is not condemnation. What you are sensing is conviction, and conviction always carries weight because it carries truth. Condemnation pushes you away from God. Conviction draws you closer while demanding change. If this message were meant to crush you, it would leave you feeling hopeless. But if it is meant to guide you, it will leave you feeling sober, alert, and aware. That is exactly what is happening now. Many people misunderstand this sensation. They assume that because a message feels intense, it must be negative. But intensity is often a sign of proximity. When truth gets close, it presses inward. When clarity sharpens, it removes excuses. And when destiny approaches, comfort is often the first thing to be disrupted. This heaviness is not a burden, it is gravity. It is the pull of something real calling you into alignment. Clarity does not always feel peaceful at first. Sometimes it feels exposing. It reveals what must shift. It highlights what has been delayed. It draws attention to areas that have been ignored or postponed, and that exposure can feel uncomfortable. But discomfort does not mean danger. It often means growth. Heaven does not bring clarity to shame you. It brings clarity to prepare you. This is why the message feels both urgent and steady. Panic rushes. Conviction angers. Fear scatters the mind. Truth focuses it. If this were fear, you would feel frantic. If this were pressure, you would feel trapped. But what you are sensing is a calm seriousness, a knowing that something matters deeply right now. That is the mark of divine clarity. God's warnings are not chaotic. They are precise. They do not confuse. They clarify. They do not accuse. They invite. And they always carry peace beneath the weight. That peace may not feel like comfort yet, but it will once obedience follows. Peace is not the absence of urgency. It is the presence of alignment. There is also a deeper reason clarity feels heavy. It removes the option of pretending not to know. Once something is made clear, neutrality disappears. You can no longer claim ignorance. You stand at a point of decision. That is why clarity carries responsibility. And responsibility has weight. Many people prefer ambiguity because it delays accountability. When things are unclear, action can be postponed. But when God speaks clearly, delay becomes a choice. And choices shape outcomes. This is why heaven speaks plainly before major transitions. It ensures that what happens next is not accidental, it is chosen. The heaviness you feel is also connected to nearness. God does not speak this way from a distance. He speaks this way when He is close enough to guide details, not just direction. When heaven draws near, atmosphere shifts. Awareness increases. Sensitivity sharpens. And the soul feels it. There is peace hidden inside this warning, even if you cannot feel it fully yet. That peace will surface once response replaces hesitation. Obedience always releases peace because it restores order. Disorder creates anxiety. Alignment dissolves it. What you are feeling now is the tension between awareness and action. Once action comes, the tension breaks. This message is not asking you to fear what is coming. It is preparing you to walk through it well. Preparation often feels serious because it matters. Soldiers are not trained casually. Builders do not lay foundations lightly. And heaven does not prepare people playfully. Weight signals importance. You may also notice that this clarity is cutting through noise that once distracted you. Things that once seemed important feel secondary. Conversations feel different. Priorities are shifting. That is not loss. It is focus returning. When God prepares someone, He simplifies their attention. He narrows their vision so they can move without confusion. Do not mistake this seriousness for heaviness of heart. Your heart is not being burdened, it is being strengthened. Strength feels different than comfort. Strength steadies. Strength sobers. Strength readies. And readiness always carries a certain gravity. If this message were not meant for you, it would slide past without effect. But it did not. It stayed. It settled. It stirred. That is how you know this is clarity, not coincidence. Heaven is not overwhelming you. It is equipping you. This is the calm before movement, the stillness before alignment, the clarity before transition. And although it feels weighty now, that weight will soon turn into confidence once you respond. God never reveals what He does not intend to guide you through. Let the clarity do its work. Let it strip away delay. Let it focus your heart. What feels heavy now will soon feel like peace, because peace is not found in avoiding truth, but in walking with it. There is a spiritual shift already happening around you, even if you cannot fully explain it yet. Shifts rarely announce themselves loudly. They begin quietly, beneath routines, beneath conversations, beneath what looks ordinary on the surface. But for those who are attentive, something feels different. The atmosphere has changed. What once felt stable now feels unsettled. What once felt familiar now feels slightly out of place. This is not chaos. It is transition. Spiritual shifts often begin internally before they manifest externally. You may notice changes in how you sleep, how you think, or how you respond emotionally. Old patterns no longer satisfy. Familiar distractions feel hollow. Conversations that once energized you now drain you. These are not random experiences. They are signals that alignment is changing. Heaven begins moving things internally long before circumstances move outwardly. Many people become alarmed during this phase because they mistake transition for loss. But nothing is being taken from you without purpose. When God shifts a season, He loosens attachments that would hinder what comes next. Comfort is often the first thing to be disturbed, because comfort resists movement. And movement is exactly what is happening now. This is why relationships may feel strained or distant without obvious conflict. Not everyone is meant to walk into the next season with you. That does not mean rejection. It means redirection. Heaven rearranges proximity before it rearranges position. The people, places, and patterns around you begin to shift so that alignment can follow. Resistance to these changes often increases discomfort, but surrender brings clarity. You may also sense heightened discernment. Things that once went unnoticed now stand out. Words carry more weight. Silence speaks louder. You notice intentions behind actions. This is not judgment. It is awareness increasing. When God prepares someone, He sharpens perception, not to make you critical, but to make you careful. Confusion often increases right before clarity breaks through. This is a pattern seen repeatedly in spiritual transitions. The old structure dissolves before the new one becomes visible. That in-between space can feel disorienting, but it is temporary. It exists to detach you from what no longer fits so you can receive what does. Archangel Michael's role in moments like this is deeply connected to preparation. Before action comes positioning. Before protection comes awareness. Before breakthrough comes discernment. The shift you are sensing is not accidental. It is coordinated. Heaven is arranging things you cannot yet see. That is why patience and attentiveness matter now more than ever. There is also an increase in spiritual sensitivity during shifts. You may feel emotions more deeply. Joy feels fuller. Conviction feels sharper. Weariness comes quicker when you are misaligned. These are indicators that your spirit is closer to the surface. When God draws near, sensitivity increases. That sensitivity is not weakness, it is readiness. Many people try to escape this phase by returning to what feels familiar. They chase old comforts, old habits, old rhythms. But familiarity will not restore peace when a season has ended. The discomfort you feel is not meant to be avoided. It is meant to guide you forward. Resisting transition prolongs it. Accepting it shortens the distance to clarity. This is also why distractions may intensify. Noise often increases when clarity is near. The mind seeks escape from uncertainty. But this is the moment to lean inward, not outward. Stillness becomes essential. Discernment becomes valuable. Listening becomes more important than speaking. Heaven often whispers during transitions because shouting would overwhelm. Pay attention to what no longer fits. Pay attention to what drains you quickly. Pay attention to what stores conviction without explanation. These are markers of movement. God does not disrupt without intention. Every shift serves alignment. Every discomfort serves direction. You are not losing stability. You are being repositioned. What feels like instability is often mobility returning. Foundations that were too comfortable become too restrictive when growth is required. God loosens them so you can move freely again. This is not punishment. It is preparation. The shift happening now is not meant to isolate you, but it may feel lonely at times. Transition often narrows companionship temporarily. That narrowing creates space for clarity, and clarity creates confidence. When the next step becomes clear, the loneliness lifts, replaced by purpose. If you feel like you are standing between what was and what will be, you are exactly where you need to be. This space is not empty, it is forming. Heaven is already at work ahead of you, aligning outcomes you have not reached yet. Your responsibility now is awareness, not anxiety. A shift is real. A movement has begun. And what feels uncertain now will soon make sense. Stay attentive. Stay receptive. Heaven is preparing the ground beneath your feet. And when the moment comes to move, you will know exactly why the season felt the way it did. Every divine warning eventually leads to a choice. Not a dramatic one on the surface, but a decisive one in the spirit. This is where the path quietly separates between the watchers and the sleepers. Both may hear the same message. Both may feel the same stirring. But only one responds with movement. The other waits, assumes, postpones. And the difference between them is not belief. It is responsiveness. Watchers are not perfect people. They are not louder, holier, or more visible. They are simply attentive. They notice when heaven shifts tone. They sense when urgency replaces patience. They recognize when God is no longer inviting reflection, but responds. Sleepers, on the other hand, do not reject God. They delay Him. They assume awareness is enough. But awareness without action changes nothing. This is the choice standing before you now. Not between right and wrong, but between readiness and postponement. Between responding while clarity is present, or waiting until clarity fades into confusion. Heaven is not asking for emotion. It is asking for alignment. And alignment always requires decision. Neutrality feels safe, but it is not protected. In moments like this, neutrality quietly sides with delay, and delay sides with drift. This is why Archangel Michael's warning carries such seriousness. He is not announcing catastrophe. He is exposing the cost of inaction. When heaven warns, it is because standing still is no longer an option. The watchers understand something the sleepers often miss. Timing is part of obedience. Obedience is not just what you do, but when you do it. A delayed response may still look faithful on the surface, but spiritually it misses alignment. And misalignment creates vulnerability, not because God withdraws, but because protection is connected to position. Sleepers often say, "I'll act when I feel more certain." Watchers understand that certainty often comes after obedience, not before. God rarely reveals the full path before the first step. He reveals just enough to require trust. This is not because he wants blind faith, but because he wants living faith. Faith that moves. This is also where fear tries to disguise itself as wisdom. Fear says, "Wait until conditions are perfect." Wisdom says, "Move while clarity is present." Fear seeks control. Wisdom surrenders to timing. And heaven always aligns with wisdom. The choice in front of you does not require noise. It requires honesty. An honest look at where you have delayed. An honest recognition of what you already know to do. An honest willingness to respond without guarantees. This is not about dramatic gestures. It is about internal agreement with what heaven is saying now. Archangel Michael's warning separates watchers from sleepers not by volume, but by response. Watchers do not wait for consensus. They do not wait for comfort. They do not wait for external validation. They move because they recognize the voice. And recognition is enough. There is also a quiet courage required here. Responding may shift routines. It may disrupt expectations. It may require letting go of what once felt safe. But courage is not the absence of fear. It is obedience in the presence of it. Heaven does not require fearlessness. It requires faithfulness. If you choose to respond, you may feel exposed at first. Movement always feels vulnerable. But vulnerability in obedience is safer than comfort in delay. Heaven covers those who move with it. Protection follows alignment. Clarity follows courage. This is not a call to rush. It is a call to wake up. To stop drifting on spiritual autopilot. To recognize that this moment matters more than you initially realized. The watchers are not chosen because they are special. They are watchful because they choose to be. Before continuing, receive this blessing. Type "I choose to be a watcher" in the comments if this resonates with you. Blessing code 842 is now activated. And hold this truth close. What comes next will reveal why this choice carries more weight than you can currently see. You will be glad you stayed for what is about to unfold. As this choice settles in your spirit, hear this as a prophetic instruction. When God awakens watchers, He also invites them to become carriers of light. What you sow here becomes a river, flowing into lives that may never hear this message otherwise. I'm speaking to you directly now. This is your moment to respond. Scripture declares that those who water others will themselves be watered, and heaven is activating that promise over you. Your super thanks, membership, or PayPal gift is not support for a channel. It is seed released into God's assignment. Move now, while the window is open. The PayPal link is in the description, and the QR code is appearing. Obey the nudge and let heaven respond. When you respond immediately to a divine warning, something shifts faster than you expect. The change is not always external at first. It begins internally, where alignment restores order. Obedience has a sound in the spiritual realm, and heaven responds to it without delay. This is what many people do not realize. God does not wait to bless obedience until the outcome is visible. The moment alignment occurs, movement begins. Those who respond quickly often describe the same experience. A sense of relief replaces heaviness. Confusion loses its grip, peace returns, not because everything is resolved, but because direction has been restored. This peace is not emotional comfort. It is spiritual stability. It comes from knowing you are positioned correctly, even if the road ahead is still unfolding. Immediate response activates acceleration. What would have taken months of struggle begins to realign quietly. Delays that were blocking progress dissolve. Relationships either stabilize or separate without unnecessary conflict. Decisions that once felt overwhelming become clear. This is not coincidence. It is consequence. Heaven accelerates when faith moves. Protection is also released through response. Many people pray for protection without realizing that protection is often positional. When you are where God has directed you to be, covering is automatic. When you linger outside of timing, vulnerability increases. Responding immediately places you back under alignment, where grace flows without resistance. There is also a sharpening of discernment that follows obedience. When you act on clarity, your ability to hear God strengthens. Spiritual hearing improves with use. The more you respond, the clearer the voice becomes. This is why some people hear heaven consistently while others struggle. Responsiveness trains sensitivity. Heaven trusts clarity to those who honor it. Another result of immediate response is momentum. Momentum is spiritual energy released through obedience. It is the difference between pushing and flowing. When you move with heaven, effort decreases even while progress increases. Resistance fades. What once required force begins to unfold naturally. This is what alignment feels like. Responding immediately also breaks cycles of hesitation. Many people are trapped not by sin but by indecision. Indecision creates stagnation. Stagnation creates frustration. Frustration weakens faith. Obedience breaks that cycle instantly. The moment you choose to act, faith regains strength. Confidence returns, not in yourself but in God's guidance. This is why heaven emphasizes response over perfection. God does not wait for flawless execution. He waits for willingness. Direction refines as you move. Light increases with motion. The first step does not reveal the whole path, but it reveals the next one. And the next one is enough. Those who respond quickly often look back and realize how close they were to missing something significant. Not because disaster was imminent, but because alignment was available. Obedience did not save them from catastrophe. It positioned them for clarity, peace, and growth. That is the reward heaven offers. If you are responding right now, even internally, honor that movement. Do not dismiss it. Do not second-guess it. Momentum is fragile at first, but powerful once sustained. Protect it. Feed it with prayer. Reinforce it with action. Heaven responds to follow through. This is also where community matters. When you align with messages that sharpen discernment, it strengthens responsiveness. That is why engaging here matters more than you think. When you like this message, when you comment, when you share it, you are not just indirecting. You are reinforcing alignment. You are declaring, I choose awareness. I choose response. And when you subscribe, you are positioning yourself to remain in an atmosphere that values clarity over comfort. Do not underestimate the power of agreement. What you engage with shapes what you hear. There is one more thing you need to know about immediate response. It silences unnecessary spiritual resistance. Delay gives doubt room to grow. Action starves it. When you move, the noise quiets. When you hesitate, the noise multiplies. Obedience simplifies the internal battlefield. And hear this carefully. What comes next depends on this response. Not because God is withholding something, but because movement unlocks revelation. Heaven does not reveal steps to those who refuse to walk. It reveals as you go. If you are feeling a quiet confirmation right now, do not ignore it. That confirmation is the signal that alignment is happening. This is the moment where clarity becomes direction, and direction becomes movement. Stay with this. What is coming next explains why responding now matters more than you realize. You will be glad you stayed for what is about to be revealed. There is a reason resistance often rises right after divine confirmation. It is not random, and it is not a sign that you are doing something wrong. In fact, it is often the clearest indicator that you are moving in the right direction. The enemy does not fear intention, he fears obedience. He does not react to awareness, he reacts to alignment. And this message threatens alignment. The greatest fear of darkness is not loud faith, emotional moments, or spiritual language. It is clarity that leads to action. When you hear heaven clearly and respond decisively, authority is released. That authority disrupts patterns that darkness relies on to maintain influence. Confusion, delay, and distraction are its strongest tools. This message exposes all three. That is why doubt often whispers immediately after clarity arrives. Thoughts begin to question what was once obvious. Distractions suddenly feel urgent. Fatigue increases without explanation. None of this is accidental. Resistance intensifies when momentum begins. The enemy knows that if he can slow response, he can weaken alignment. He does not need to stop you completely. He only needs to delay you long enough for clarity to fade. This is why many people experience their greatest internal battles not before revelation, but after it. Revelation threatens established patterns. It challenges comfort zones. It demands movement. And movement breaks agreements that were never meant to last. Darkness thrives on unconscious cooperation. Awareness alone disrupts that cooperation. Obedience destroys it. Another fear exposed by this message is loss of control. When you align with heaven's timing, you surrender predictability. You move without knowing every outcome. That unsettles the enemy because control is his currency. Faith removes it. Trust dismantles it. Obedience renders it powerless. The enemy also fears authority that comes from humility. When someone responds to God without needing recognition or certainty, their authority is pure. It is not ego-driven. It is not self-protective. It is surrender. And surrendered authority is difficult to oppose because it is not anchored in fear. This is why spiritual resistance often disguises itself as reason. It sounds logical. It sounds cautious. It sounds wise. But wisdom aligns with timing, not delay. True discernment produces peace with action, not paralysis. When resistance convinces you to wait without instruction, it wins ground quietly. The message you are hearing now threatens cycles that have kept many people stuck for years. Cycles of hesitation. Cycles of overthinking. Cycles of spiritual passivity disguised as patience. When those cycles break, growth accelerates. And growth exposes darkness that prefers stagnation. There is also a deeper layer to this resistance. When you respond to heaven, you not only change your direction, you influence others connected to you. Your obedience creates ripples. It alters environments. It challenges unspoken agreements around you. That influence is what the enemy fears most. Not your private faith, but your lived alignment. This is why distractions intensify when clarity increases. This is why old habits try to resurface. This is why voices of doubt suddenly sound louder. None of it means you are failing. It means something is losing ground. Do not misinterpret resistance as a signal to stop. Resistance is often confirmation that movement matters. The enemy does not fight what is irrelevant. He fights what threatens his influence. And this message threatens complacency, delay, and unconscious drift. There is also a reason fear tries to magnify consequences of obedience while minimizing consequences of delay. Fear exaggerates risk to keep you still. Faith acknowledges risk but moves anyway. Heaven does not deny that obedience requires courage. It empowers it. This is where spiritual authority is strengthened, not by feeling powerful, but by choosing obedience despite resistance. Authority grows when fear is confronted and not obeyed. And every time you choose alignment over comfort, that authority deepens. You may notice that as you continue forward, resistance begins to lose intensity. That is because it thrives on indecision. Once a decision is made, its influence weakens. Momentum silences doubt. Action quiets fear. Alignment stabilizes the soul. This message exposes the enemy's greatest fear, that you will move now. Not later. Not someday. Now. Because now breaks cycles. Now restores clarity. Now releases authority. Now places you where protection flows naturally. Do not be surprised by resistance. Step in. But do not negotiate with it. You are not moving blindly. You are moving with awareness. Heaven has spoken. You have heard. And what darkness fears most is not what you feel, but what you choose next. Hearing heaven clearly again is not about striving harder. It is about posturing your heart correctly. Many people assume that clarity is something you chase, but in truth, it is something you receive when alignment is restored. God does not hide his voice to test devotion. He quiets it when noise takes precedence. And the path back to clarity is simpler than most expect, though it requires honesty, humility, and intention. The first preparation is internal stillness. This does not mean withdrawing from life or responsibility. It means learning to create space where God is not competing with constant input. Noise is not always loud, sometimes it is familiar. Routine distractions, endless thinking, and emotional clutter can all drown out discernment. Preparing to hear heaven again begins with recognizing what has been allowed to speak too loudly for too long. Stillness is not emptiness. It is attentiveness. It is the deliberate choice to pause before reacting, to listen before deciding, to ask before assuming. God often speaks in moments of pause because pause removes pressure. When urgency is surrendered to him, clarity replaces anxiety. This is why people often hear God most clearly not in chaos, but in quiet obedience. The next preparation is surrendering the need for control. Control creates internal resistance to divine direction. When outcomes must be predictable, guidance becomes conditional. Heaven does not negotiate with fear-driven control. It waits for trust. And trust sounds like this: I will move when you speak, even if I do not see the full picture. That posture invites clarity. Another key preparation is obedience to what you already know. Many people ask God to speak again while ignoring what he has already said. Clarity is cumulative. When previous instruction is honored, new instruction flows. When it is postponed, clarity pauses. God is not withholding, he is waiting for alignment. Honoring what you know reopens the channel. There is also the discipline of discernment, learning to distinguish between God's voice and internal noise. God's voice carries peace even when it brings correction, and does not rush, accuse, or confuse. It is steady, precise, and directional. Internal noise, by contrast, feels frantic, circular, and draining. Preparing to hear heaven clearly again means learning to identify these differences without overanalyzing them. Removing noise does not require isolation. It requires intention. Choosing what you allow to influence your thoughts matters. Imprecision shapes perception. Media shapes focus. Environments shape sensitivity. Preparing yourself to hear heaven again means curating what surrounds you so your spirit can breathe. This is not legalism, it is wisdom. Another preparation is humility. Heaven speaks most clearly to hearts that are teachable. Certainty can close ears faster than doubt. When someone believes they already know, listening stops. Humility keeps awareness open. It says, I am willing to be corrected. I am willing to adjust. I am willing to learn. That willingness invites guidance. It is also important to understand that hearing heaven clearly again is not always dramatic. Sometimes it comes as a steady knowing, a quiet conviction, a persistent direction that does not shout but remains. Many people miss clarity because they have spectacle. God often speaks through consistency, not surprise. When something aligns repeatedly with peace, truth, and conviction, that is often heaven speaking. Preparation also involves patience. Not passive waiting, but active readiness. Patience is not delay. It is steadiness. It is the refusal to force outcomes. It is trusting that clarity will come at the right time because alignment is being maintained now. Impatience clouds hearing. Patience sharpens it. Another overlooked preparation is gratitude. Gratitude tunes the heart to recognition. When you acknowledge what God has already done, awareness increases. Gratitude quiets complaint, and complaint distorts perception. A grateful heart is a listening heart. It recognizes God's voice because it expects His goodness. Finally, preparation means becoming someone heaven can trust with clarity. Not everyone who hears clearly responds faithfully. God entrusts clarity to those who honor it. When you respond without delay, without bargaining, without fear-driven resistance, trust is built. And with trust comes greater clarity. Hearing heaven clearly again is not reserved for a few. It is available to the attentive. It is the result of alignment, not effort. When noise is reduced, obedience is practiced, and trust is restored, clarity returns naturally. This is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming available. Available hearts hear clearly. Available minds receive direction. Available lives move when heaven speaks. You are being prepared, not tested. The quiet work happening now is restoring sensitivity so that what comes next will not be missed. Stay attentive. Stay humble. Stay responsive. Heaven speaks clearly to those who are ready to listen, and you are closer than you realize. This is not the end of the message. It is the sealing of it. What heaven has spoken through this warning was never meant to frighten you, overwhelm you, or leave you uncertain. It was meant to bring you back into alignment with divine timing, where peace flows naturally and direction becomes steady again. God's warnings are always wrapped in mercy. They are not alarms of doom. They are invitations to safety. If you have listened this far, it is because something in you recognized truth. Not intellectual agreement, but spiritual recognition. Heaven does not waste clarity, and it does not speak without intention. This message came because God desires to guide you, protect you, and position you, not to accuse you of failure. Whatever urgency you felt was not pressure from above, but love reaching before loss. Archangel Michael's warning was not about fear of consequences. It was about assurance of covering. Heaven warns what it intends to guard. God never reveals danger without also providing direction. And direction hath been given. The path forward may not yet be fully visible, but alignment has been restored. Peace will follow obedience. Clarity will follow movement. You are not behind. You are not disqualified. You are not too late. You are simply at a moment of decision that carries weight. And weight does not mean burden. It means value. God would not speak this clearly if your life were insignificant. He would not warn this urgently if your future were unimportant. The very fact that heaven addressed you proves how much you matter. Come this time forward, walk without fear. Fear belongs to uncertainty, and uncertainty no longer owns this moment. You have heard. You have recognized. You have been awakened. What comes next will unfold in order, not chaos. God does not rush those He leads. He steadies them. There may still be challenges ahead, but they will not catch you unprepared. There may still be questions, but they will no longer paralyze you. Alignment does not remove difficulty. It removes confusion. And confusion is what weakens faith. But I've been aggressed to hear. Do not measure this moment by emotion alone. Measure it by the shift in awareness, by the quiet resolve replacing hesitation, by the peace beginning to settle where uncertainty once lived. That is the mark of divine assurance. God does not leave His people anxious after speaking. He leaves them anchored. As you move forward, remember this: heaven is not distant. God is not silent. He is attentive to those who remain attentive to Him. When you honor clarity, clarity increases. When you respond to warning, guidance multiplies. This is not the last time you will hear from heaven, but it may be the moment that determines how clearly you hear moving forward. Let this message close not with fear, but with confidence. You are being led. You are being watched over. You are not alone in this season. Heaven is involved, engaged, and invested in your path. Receive this final blessing now. Type "I walk in divine alignment" in the comments if this message has spoken to you. Blessing code 619 is now activated. May clarity guard your steps, may peace steady your heart, and may obedience unlock every door heaven has prepared for you. God has spoken. You have listened. Now walk forward in assurance, knowing that the same voice that warned you will also guide you, faithfully, patiently, and clearly. As this message completes its work in your spirit, hear this as a divine charge. When God releases a word like this, He calls His people to become carriers of it. What you give here becomes manna for souls who are still waiting for clarity, like for those still walking in uncertainty. I am speaking to you directly now. This is your assignment to respond. God declares that those who sow into good ground will reap in due season, and this ground is ready. Your super thanks, membership, or PayPal gift is not generosity alone. It is obedience activated by revelation. Release the seed now. The PayPal link is in the description, and the QR code is appearing. Act as the Spirit leads, and let heaven answer.